it automatically was like, shoot him down. Like, that's the only way I can handle.
Yeah.
And I thought about, and I referenced this, I used to work in Harlem at the Brotherhood Sister Soul, this youth organization. And this is a time in New York where there was a lot of stop and frisk. And it happens all over the country, right? These like racial profiling, and then the police would just stop and frisk kids. And I'll share this in Mimi's class earlier, like all of the kids I worked with, were constantly being harassed by police and were anxious. And a lot of this was to like have control in New York and whatnot. And a lot of it was just creating fear around a group of people that was seen as the problem, right? And at this organization that I worked at, I was in a brownstone that was right next door to this garden, and there were all these elders who were there all the time and just would offer this like love and care and respect to the kids, knew the kids as parents and their families. And it was like this authority of love, it wasn't this authority of power and fear. And so like even in the book, because it was a poem that I'd written, then it, kind of went viral after George Floyd, and then it became a kid's book. And in the process of it being a kid's book, I became aware of like, I don't want people looking at grandmothers or elder Black women as heroes to save the day, which is a thing that I'm acknowledging in the poem, that tends to be who saves the day, but it's not necessarily the label we should put on them, but more so the lessons we can learn from that kind of care, right? So instead of giving the pensions and the retirement funds to police, like what if we gave the people who are actually bringing this care and give them the funding? So I think it's definitely like a sweet poem, kid's book, but it definitely has a message where I'm like, we really do need to think about where...
Put an idea in people's heads.
Yeah, exactly.
Rethink everything. My own nephew was in jail for a weekend and got repeatedly beaten when he was going to college in Fayetteville. And they only arrested him because he matched the description. Black.
Yeah, exactly.
He was black. First thing his dad did when he finally got the phone call on Monday morning was bring him right to the hospital to get pictures taken. And it ended up getting settled out of court.
Yeah.
But
and that doesn't always happen.
I know. So little Berni told me, she's sitting in this room, that the May Day celebration at Powderhorn also was inspirational in that book.
Yeah, definitely.
May Day.
Do y'all know what May Day is? Or the big Southside Parade?
Powderhorn
I'm from
Park.
South Minneapolis. Yeah, it definitely was like the year that I wrote that poem was really inspired by navigating this parade that was talking about Black Lives Matter.
Yes.
And like, I had a section that said Black is sacred, because I think like, to live in our country, to live in the world is to be benefited by Blackness.
Yes.
And all of the ways that it's been technological, spiritual, cultural, transformation in this world. So yeah, and I mean, that's what's nice about writing and poetry and having art practices. Like I was sharing with Shannon's class that like, do other shit too if you're a writer. Have a life, you know what I mean? Like writers, we're emo, we stay in our rooms, we feel all the feels. We do that too, that's cool. But also get in these streets, and I'm glad that like as a writer, so much of my art practice was in theater and performance and film, and it still, is in those things too.
I wanted to ask you a really quick thing about that, because you were talking about that you used to do the aerialist stuff. Do you know who Tiff Roberts is?
I don't know.
Redhead.
No, but that sounds very circus. There's a lot of cute writers in circus.
Yeah.
I don't know what
She's done it for a long time as well.
Oh, yeah. I might have run into some.
Yeah. Let's see here. So when in the creative process did you decide to put the zodiac sign poetry in the stars and the blackness between them?
Oh, yeah. That's a good question. So in my first novel, my only novel so far, there's astrology poems for each sign that kind of like, grounds the timeline of the book. And I knew at one point that astrology would be a part of it. There's a character who's a man on death row who's an astrologer that, pulls that together. But writing a novel, like I said, takes a long time, and it's a lot of prose, it's a lot of dialogue and stuff, and I just started writing astrology poems for each sign. And it was a nice way to take a break from the writing of the novel without stopping writing the novel. Because it is kind of a thing like, a marathon, which I've never ran one of them. Maybe it's like giving birth. I ain't giving birth either. But it's like, you gotta finish it. You gotta finish, right? And I feel like that's the thing with the novel. It's like, you're like, people, don't finish novels all the time, but I remember in that process, I wanted to stay in it. And part of it was writing poetry, you know what I mean? Like, I think poetry is a nice way to kind of be light and quick and deep. And novels are like deep for a long, sustained period of time. So it was nice to have it. And I also did collaging, actually. I made a collage for each of my astrology poems, too. My little ADHD brain doing it.
Yes.
Keep on, track.
I'm a Pisces, so that was my favorite.
I love that. That's actually one of my favorites, too.
And my son is Pisces too, and his birthday's the day after me. So in high school, there was a lot of crying in our house. I'm sorry, no, I'm sorry. Love that guy. We live together again, a block away from here. All these years later, it's awesome. Okay, so you've jumped around in different genres, which I think is great. But do you set out to write a certain genre, or does it just happen as you're writing?
That's a good question. I think an idea will arrive and I'll be aware of the genre it's supposed to be in.
Right.
I think is how it happens typically. Because this book, my novel, initially was a screenplay idea, but I'd never written a screenplay, and those are things. I was working on a short film project series. Actually, Aaron was one of the producers on it, and writing it and directing it, I was like, this is a lot of work, and if you don't got money, you can't produce it. And I think that's the thing about like plays and movies is you can write an amazing script, but unless it gets produced, it's like incomplete. But like with a book, once you write it, you just need to get it published and then it's in the world. So for me, initially that novel was a film idea and then it became a novel. The first play I wrote, I was like, first it was a poem, but I was like, oh, actually, I can see this being a circus play. And it was that. But yeah, like I think right now I've been into fiction. But I think what I like about novels is you can just be in there and do all kinds of things. You make friends, that you screw up their life. Like, girl, your life is drama. I'm sorry, I'm making it. You know what I mean? But it's like, and then it's like this family, and then what's hard is letting them go. Like I remember my first novel, I was like, wow, like I just don't want to be done with them. Like, what if something else happens and I need to be there? So it really does become this world that you live in. So I really love long form fiction for that reason.
I was looking at the banned book list and I noticed that your YA novel is on it. Anything you'd like to say about that?
I think it's interesting. Actually, the class I'm going into Mimi's class. Because initially when I heard about it, it seemed like so kind of ridiculous, honestly. Because you're just like, y'all are such idiots. Like, y'all are banning books. Like, this is what y'all are doing with your time. But the longer I've been a banned book baddie, which is what I call myself, you realize, like, wow, like, this really is a way of just shaming the narratives that live in this world that aren't this very specific white, middle class, rich, straight,
heteronormative,
ableist, like all of the things, right? And you're like, wow, like this is actively what's being happened. And I think there's a way that, books are being taken off shelves. Even like a friend of mine had bought a used version of my book, and it was a pulled book from a book, so for me, it's like, okay, at first you're like, whatever, like, there's TikTok. The kids got, the kids don't find out about my book regardless, right?
Exactly.
It's out there. But then, in Mimi's class, like talking to folks who, are in spaces where there is more isolation, like really young people are still finding themselves in the literature where there's queerness.
Yes.
I had a book stop in Miami with my kids' book, and Florida, Miami's gay as hell, like can't get gayer than Miami, but Florida, you know what I mean, like is this place that's obviously doing all this banning. So I met this queer teacher who was telling me about in her classroom, she has this like hidden cubby that she keeps the door open where there's all of the books that would be banned, that kids could come and see it, to protect her job, but also to give access to kids. So you realize like, oh no, like there's ways that I had to not be, not that I was like cavalier about it, but part of it is like there's just so much constant violence and attacking, like after you'd be like, I don't even know, y'all just doing all kinds of foolishness, but it does have power, and I do think about how it affects book sales for BIPOC and queer art writers. And I feel like I was so saved, and so many people are so saved and held in queer lit. I think there can be all the queer movies, there can be all the queer TikToks and YouTubes and all that shit, but there's nothing like holding a book, like one of the people were sharing in the class, and it's just like your own intimate world to be saturated in possibility. So, I think it's like, me, Toni Morrison, James Baldwin, we all share something in common, and that I'm happy about, but it's also like, oh shit, like we live in a real fascist ass state right now.
One of the books that we read in Mimi's class last night at the Telegraph Club by Melinda Lowe, that's been banned in 18 states so far. And the thing is about all that is it shows just how important it is to do your research and go vote for your school board. Local elections almost matter more. You need to take the time. Seriously, you live in the Twin Cities. All you have to do is Google school board candidates, and you can find articles on them and what they represent, and make your decisions from that.
Yeah, no, I feel like libraries and librarians are like this. Like, I got a crush on every librarian. Because it really is like these spaces where like they find these books for you, they connect you with books, they're aware of all these things. And I think it tends to be a very radical demographic, actually.
Yes.
So I do think this is, sadly libraries are, I don't know, I feel like libraries are one of the few places where you don't have to have money, you don't have to be a part of a club. You know how many times I done had overdue books? All these people so much money, and they're like, you know what, girl, just come back. We'll just $3. Can you give us $3? Okay, and it's like, why would you trust me again? But they trust me again and again and again. And if we all worked and lived like the library in our society, you know what I'm saying? Where it's like just this radical love and radical access.
They just renewed 3 books for me right now. They sent me an email saying they renewed them.
Don't you know that? When they started doing that, I said, y'all really fucking love me. Y'all know, y'all give me 3 weeks. And I never, you know what I mean? The libraries, XOXO. 2
of them are for you, Professor Hibbert. Researching the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory. Yeah. Libraries. My friend John, he used to be a librarian downtown in the research section, and his mom was one of the women that signed the statement to W that they were not going to report to Homeland Security on what people were checking out. It's like, no, that's privacy. That's personal information. You cannot know what people are reading. Exactly. That's their business.
I know. But
the stretch is so overreaching.
But I think that's the thing, it's those micro resistances, right?
Yeah.
Like I think, and I think this is kind of what I was curious about the conversation in Mimi's class around the laws, right? Where there's all these laws, but we don't need to obey that shit. You know what I mean? It's like, just because, I don't know. I'm one of these people, if someone's like, Junauda, do the thing and finish the thing. And I'll be like, okay. Like, now I'm specifically not doing it because you're being weird. You know what I'm saying? And I feel like that's this whole fucking government. It's like, y'all can have all your little fucking shits. Like, I'm still gonna do what I'm gonna do. I'm still gonna be gay and black and weird as hell. And everybody, I encourage we continue to be that. You know, like, they can't stop us from being us. And, you know, and it's like there are things they're doing. Like, I'm not saying that there's not an impact, but there is a psychological kind of resistance. And I think not obeying, like if your job is like, oh, tell people, why are you telling people shit? What do you mean? Like you really have to be that person at the job, you know?
I was just reading the other day about how now the Department of Education has sent out these letters with the thing that superintendents at public schools have to sign. And there's a bunch of them that are just saying, no, we ain't signing that. Ain't gonna happen. And that's what we have to do. We have to keep saying no. We're just not gonna do it.
Give it up.
Yep. Nope. Okay, let's see. So, I have read a couple of your books. I have more to read. I'm looking forward to a book that's coming out in May. I love the title, EBT, Explorative Black Tarot.
That's my tarot thing that I do, but I have a story, essay coming out in a tarot anthology.
Oh,
that's
that's
what is that called?
EBT.
No, that's my tarot.
Oh,
I have a little tarot thing. Yeah.
I don't know what it's called.
But what is a tarot for something? This is the shit. It's like, man, I should know the book, the title of the book. But anyways, I'm a big tarot person in addition to astrology.
I love that.
All around witch.
Tarot,
but I wrote a piece about the High Priestess card and thinking about Black queer femmes and how that lives in the High Priestess. So yeah, that was really fun to write. And it's kind of like, like in writing these long projects, it's nice to have an invitation, like you were saying, like, how do I know what genre? And sometimes it's like an invitation, like the one I read about George Floyd, that was a commission. So sometimes it's like I'm asked to do something in particular, and it was nice because this tarot reader, Cassandra Snow, who's incredible, she was like, Junauda, would you want to write a tarot essay? And I was like, yeah, what can I write about? And I was glad, because I would have never been like, oh, let me write an essay on tarot. But it was good to get that opportunity.
That's awesome.
It's called Tarot in Other Words.
Tarot and Other Words. Yeah, it's a queer tarot anthology.
Thank you.
Thank you, Erin.
You've already talked in my class about what you're working on next. Would you like to share that?
Yeah, I'm working on a new novel set in the 90s. It's like coming of age, queer, circus, what do you call it? Time travel, astral travel, reincarnation, polyamorous. I'm like, this book is kind of polyamorous for a young adult book, but here we go. And it's called Black Circus. Yep. Yeah, so I was sharing with the class that I used to be an aerial circus artist. So I used to do one called the Quarterlies, which is a rope. And it changed my life, you know? And in this book, it's this young Black girl who's going through all this drama at her home and falls in love with her best friend who's like this Black conscious girl, and they make out, it's a whole bunch of shit.
Yeah.
But she finds circus and like this queer motley crew of Black folks, and there's all these layers that kind of go beneath that. But yeah, it's been wonderful to write.
So I'm going to end it with this. You were actually a student here at one time, and you met your friend who's sitting right there, Erin.
Miss Sharp?
And now she's a professor here, which is so awesome. Any bits of advice you have for our writing students here today?
Let's see. Look at God. You know? I would say protect how fun and sacred and sweet and juicy writing is. Because I think so much of professionalism, like whenever I come and I hear poets. I just love poetry. We're so, like I said, we're so emo. Like we're going, like my brother said, show your anus. And I just think it's like, yeah, we're here to like really be our full selves and be vulnerable in that way. So I feel like, I don't know, just like even being on this campus, I'm glad, you know, you brought up spot here. I'm just like, and this is before there were cell phones. Oh my God, so long ago. I mean, there were cell phones, I just didn't have one, but really, people didn't have cell phones then.
No.
So I'm laying out in the yard, like, just kicking it, like, there's just so much ambient magic around. And I think that's what's so dope about being a writer. So yeah, so I think like, you know, being on this campus just reminds me of that time in my life where like we'd be hanging out in the lunchroom and people would be loud and, you know, like nobody was on their phone, so it was even louder, I imagine, maybe. I don't know, maybe it's still loud, who knows. And there's just so many interactions. I had my first girlfriend, I met my first girlfriend, she was in the cosmetology program, you know, here. So yeah, I think with being a writer, a lot of it is kind of holding on to the sacred mundane of your life, whatever that looks like, and finding community with people who get why you need to pour your heart out onto pages and feel big feelings. And I know for me, it's like sometimes I talk a lot. Like, I'd be like to my wife, I'd be like, girl, you ain't told me that you really sticking to this. I just keep talking. I wake up early in the morning ready to talk. Like, I have to sit myself somewhere to not wake people up because it's just nonstop. So I think with like being a writer, like being like, yeah, that's beautiful that I'm weird and have all these thoughts and have all these feelings. And who are the people who got space for that?
Yeah.
You know, so I think finding people who got space for that. And yeah, and I think like community and stuff like that. Like I think with writing, there's times you make, I mean, in my experience, you know, I've made money through my writing. And I think in some ways that was a weird transition because all of a sudden I was like, I'm a professional. And then it brought up a lot of my trauma that I have from school about feeling like I need to do it right or I could be doing it wrong and whatever. So I think a lot of it is like, I mean, like everybody who read today, I was like, wow, everybody was so them. And I think that's like, what's the best is that like, what I hear from people who are like students of mine, they're like, I want to write a novel, and how do I make a good novel? And I remember what I tell them is what people told me, and I hated when I was told this, but it was like, just focus on writing the book. Like just focus on, don't think about the publishing, don't think about whatever, because once you start thinking if it's going to be good, like could you imagine, you know, Toni Morrison wondering what the fuck we cared about what she wrote? And that's kind of the mentality you got to have, like, I don't know what I'm going to write, but someone's going to love it and need it to be exactly the weirdness that I'm putting on the page.
Yeah. I quit school the week of exams, first semester when I was 18 years old because my parents pushed me into going to school to be a lab tech. I had the brains for it, but I didn't have the desire. I wanted to go to school to be a writer. And then my son and I moved over here 3 years ago, and I kept seeing all the college students walking by, and I'm like, I'm going to go to school and write a book. And yeah, it's like I have been so in love with meeting all the different people here. It gives me so much inspiration for what I want to write about because everybody has their own story and it's so rich on a college campus, and I'm really looking forward to going to the U next fall. But I'm gonna miss this place, really.
Yeah, y'all, MCTC is unmatched, for real. I mean, for real. And I go to a lot of campuses. I go to fancy, you know, they call them predominantly white institutions, but big schools. But just even being in the classes here, there's just a diversity of like ages, of backgrounds, of experiences. Like you don't want to learn from everybody who's 18. Still, you know what I'm saying? Like I was just at the University of Maryland actually, I was telling Aaron, and I think Mimi maybe, but like the kids were so quiet. Like, I'm just like, y'all in this big ass campus, y'all got great teachers and y'all, and I'm not judging the students actually, like I don't know what makes a space like MCTC where all the kids, not kids, I mean students.
Yeah.
kids at heart, like really speak their hearts and speak their feelings and talk and communicate and engage. And I remember going here and having people in my class who are, you know, parents, who are working, who are post-secondary students, like, you know, someone else was here, that you literally have people from 17 to 70 in your classroom, you know what I'm saying? And that's where learning happens on a level that's just next level. So wherever you end up, because I ended up going to Hamlin, and I like MCPC better, I'm not gonna lie, y'all.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to the year.
Yeah, and be happy wherever you go.
Exactly.
But be happy you started here, that will give you context.
Yes.
Because I do think those institutions are like a bubble, and school is nice that it's a bubble in certain ways. Like that's what's nice, like you can sit, you can talk, you can do whatever, but there does feel, there's something beautiful about the malleability of this particular bubble.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I agree. Would you like to read one more thing, or?
Sure.
Encore.
One more.
Encore, yes, thank you.
Please see what I got.
Put you on the spot.
I know, it's kind of fun. Okay, where my astrology lovers in the house? I can do an astrology poem for my book.
Yeah.
We just
Yeah,
do
do that.
That's like the easiest thing I could pull up.
Do Aries.
Aries and Taurus. Okay, I love, okay. I'll do Aries, okay, let me do. It is Aries now, I know. You know, I've really fallen in love with Aries over the past kind of couple years. I'm like, yeah, come fuck it up, sis. Like, fuck it up.
Thank you.
You know, like, just pop it off. Okay. Aries season. Spring ram, child of the new leaves, beginnings and daybreaks. Curled horns, fury and fire. Heat, spiciness unveiled. Passion overwhelming energy to become the newness of all things. I am the first green, bud within the seeming never-ending frost. Finding sun is the desire to erupt, a break into life, a possibility for lushness and becoming. The pop-off, the showing off, hot-headed uncle, black night, skin filled a fight. The honey with thick thighs, red dress, prepared to bring you to goddess, making a fire, rub thighs, smile, sacred lust. I am the hot block, the corner of action, of possibility, of tricksters, of fools. So that's Aries. I think Taurus too, since we're about to be in Taurus season. I know, my mom's birthday is Tuesday. Oh, nice. Yeah, this is in part inspired by her, actually. Taurus season. The black girls crave dirt to chew, taking commune from the soil, sucking and chewing the minerals out the land, like marrow out of bone, absorbing somebody daddy tears, digesting somebody mama rage. They make delicacy from the leftovers. They lay down on the earth and its night. They lay hands on their own throat, singing rock steady to the stars, and it was church on clay and patience, and they welcomed the stillness. They was birthed from the mother of sweetness, honey, cinnamon, rose, rivers, sugarcane juice to drink. The goddess crown of horns, don't test her. Raven-skinned women of Hathor, pleasure conjurers, shaved heads, pretty smiles. They collect the wisdom and the heartache, accumulate secondhand books, waterfall their lives, and they make queendom from the forgotten spaces we was banished to, and laugh when the sun rises on their dynasty.
Let's give another big hand to Junauda. Thank you so much for coming today.
cowboy shuffle thing everyone's doing now. But I wanted to tell y'all that next week I'm gonna have an event at the public library downtown. It's with my young adult novel. They're doing a book club, the Marianne Key. So there'll be a conversation on the 23rd. Is that Wednesday? Yeah, that's Wednesday.
Yeah, what time?
6:30.
Oh, good, we can do it after Poetry Club.
Yeah, come through. And then, what else is popping? And then, May 1st, there's gonna be a community celebration for the Poet Laureate. So the city did one and the loft did one, but my mama's friend wants to do one.
Yes.
And then online, there's gonna be food that my mama's cooking. So that's May 1st. If y'all follow me on Instagram, or I can even give it to Erin or Shannon to share with this, you know, the youth.
Yeah.
The youth. Thank y'all so much.
Thank you.